I'm excited to talk to you today about what it means to spend time alone. And you might be wondering, why is this a topic to discuss? But it is a really, really important one, in my opinion, because I believe our alone time is where we find the treasures that we are searching for. We live in such a noisy world, and I know it just seems to get noisier by the day. There's so many distractions. There's so many things that we're busy with every single day of our lives that I think it's harder and harder to find that time to spend by ourselves and where we can cut out all the noise, where we can get quiet, understand ourselves a little bit more, and reflect, even just to reflect on our day, to listen, to unwind. There's just so many benefits to spending time by ourselves and to hear what's in our heart and in our mind and in our spirits. We're a three-part being. And I know there's times that I've gotten really, really frustrated in my life with not knowing what direction to take or what to focus on in my business ever since being a business owner. I know as I am trying to figure it out and I'm kind of chasing all these rabbits in different directions, I get more and more frustrated. And I had to realize that when I get in that state and I'm running around trying to figure it all out and nothing's making sense, it's because I'm not spending enough time on my own, in my own thoughts, cutting out everything else that's going on around me. It seems really simple, but it's actually a hard thing to do when we are very, very busy people. So I don't believe we give enough time and attention to spending time alone. In that alone time, that's where we really, truly connect with who we are as a person. And I'm always amazed in the work that I do, how many people I've come across don't have a clue who they really are. They're trying to maybe build a business or a life, and they're trying to figure some things out, and they haven't got their foundation set. And part of the foundation, and a huge part, a very important part, is knowing who you are. So what a gift to be able to have that alone time where you can figure out those things and connect with yourself in a way that you can't if you're just running ragged every day. So we give importance to ourselves when we put ourselves in our calendar. I know for a long time I would have my calendar laid out because I love to, create checklists and have a calendar with all the colors mapped out. And I would always find a time in there to say, okay, workout or journal or whatever it is that would be me time. But then when it came time to putting it into practice, I would just skip by it and go, I'll fit that in at some point. And that's not what I'm talking about here. I'm talking about putting it on our calendar, making ourselves a priority, and then executing on it, actually making it happen. And I know as a wife, as a mom, and as a business owner, and a friend, like I love to be social. I love to go for coffees. It's one of my favorite things to do. I give a lot of time and attention to those in my life that are important to me, and I'm happy to do it. But I've often found myself out of balance where I'm chasing relationships and doing all of these important things. And I'm not saying they're not important. They are. But I was not scheduling any time for me. And I know when I get to the point of that kind of frustration, I know something is out of balance. And that's usually what it is. So no matter the stage that you find yourselves in, I know when I was a single parent, that was a really busy time for me. It was hard. It was hard to carve out time. But this is important. And no matter what stage you're at, this can be done. And I'm saying it because I'm living it. I do it myself. So we're going to talk about some practical steps today and how to put yourself on the map and find that time. I want to mention seclusion is not a punishment. One of my favorite movies is The Shawshank Redemption. I don't know why it's always been at the top of my list. The character that Tim Robbins plays, he's in prison. It's a life sentence, and he is getting into some situations in the prison where he's defending himself. And there was a couple of times, one in particular, he gets a month of isolation, and he had to go spend a month in a dark room, not seeing the light of day, not talking to anybody. And it was considered a punishment. And I can only imagine that would be horrible. But so many times when we're watching movies and we're seeing what's out there in social media, we kind of have this picture painted of seclusion being a punishment. And that kind of punishment, yes. But I'm talking about in our daily lives. Isolation and spending alone time is a gift. And sometimes I think we just need to reframe it and understand it as an opportunity. People are rewarded in public for what they do in private. The more I study and the more I speak to people, very successful people doing amazing things, the more I found out that these successful people spend time alone. They don't spend, they're very intentional with their time. They have a routine. They understand the importance of focused time. And that's really what you're doing when you're spending time alone. And I'll talk more about how to spend time alone in a minute. But part of it could be having a really good morning routine. Since I have honed in more on this skill and this importance, I realized that in order for me to spend time alone, I had to adjust some things. So I now have a morning routine that serves me way better than it ever used to. And it meant that I had to fight staying in bed a little bit longer and get more sleep, go to bed a little bit sooner the night before, so that I could get up sooner and spend the time I needed to set my day up for success. That one adjustment has made a world of difference in my life and in my business. So I want to ask, maybe, what are some of the reasons that we don't want to spend time alone? I was always fascinated with people who could go out for dinner on their own or take a vacation by themselves. I've never done that, by the way, and maybe that's something I'll want to look into at some point in my life, or even go to a movie on their own. I have done that. I used to have a negative association with being alone. For a long time, I was a single parent, and that was my season of really being alone and feeling alone. And it wasn't until my daughter was in her teen years that I was able to carve out some evenings for myself. So I was alone, but I was super busy. So then all of a sudden I have some evenings where she's got other things going on. I actually had some time to myself. And what did I do with that time? I watched TV. I watched a lot of TV. I now had this precious time, and I was not using it to my advantage. And I started to realize that that time could be used to invest in my future. So little by little, I started to adjust that time. I love to read. I would get out a book. My problem is I just always wanted to have noise on. I always needed to have some kind of background noise. So that took a lot of adjusting. To be alone, just me in a quiet room with a book, not scrolling on social media, but just me reading and able to just be okay with that. And after a while, I really began to treasure that time. But it's an example, and I'm sure a few of you can relate, that sometimes just being alone in our own thoughts is scary. We are, I think, sometimes battling fear of what our lives have become, or maybe we don't know where we're going. And sometimes we avoid confronting what's going on in our minds and in our hearts, and maybe even facing change or facing what's going on in our lives. Maybe we're procrastinating. That's another big reason that sometimes avoiding being alone, facing some of those things, we're procrastinating maybe about a big decision. Maybe there's something in your life that you need to address, and you're just not doing it. And that alone time maybe is the catalyst or the uncomfortableness that you're facing in making a decision. So what can we do in our alone time? Like, let's get practical here for a minute. What now that we've carved out maybe a bit of space in our calendar, what are we going to do with it? One thing that is super important is we can imagine, just sit and imagine and visualize our future. When was the last time you did that? Maybe you need to unpack, like I just mentioned, some things that you know you need to deal with. Just being quiet and seeing what comes to mind. What's lingering in your thoughts? I'm going to say, pay attention to that. That could be something that is stopping you from moving forward. Sometimes reoccurring thoughts are a hint that we are not dealing with something that needs to be dealt with. It can bring clarity on changes that you need to make for success. As a business owner, it's been amazing spending some alone time, understanding where to go next. It can be so stressful if you allow it to start building a business and then wonder how to do it. Alone time is going to really help you in that process. You could spend time brainstorming, just shutting out all the noise, all the distractions, and grab a pen and paper. What ideas are coming to you? Some of my best ideas have been formed in my alone time, and maybe you can set some new goals. You always should be stretching yourself beyond where you're at. I talk about this a lot. Goal setting is a critical piece to building a business. That's something that you can do in your alone time because your goals will start to become clear. What do you really want to achieve? Why are you doing this? Why did you take the time and expense and effort to start a business? What are your true goals? And maybe even addressing, are you living your life for your purpose? Like if we just want to go deep here. In your alone time, you can figure out if you are actually living the life that you've wanted and dreamt about, or are you maybe living it because somebody else expected you to, or it was somebody else's dream? That's a big one right there. So you might want to jot that one down and maybe put it down as something to consider once you carve out your alone time. Maybe you could read or listen to a podcast. Growth happens when we invest in this time, and it's not just time to zone out. Pay attention to what keeps coming to you and won't leave you. Like I said, those lingering thoughts, there may be something to that, but you're going to get clarity in that alone time. The last thing I want to mention is, what are some creative ways to get to get creative in your alone time? How do we do this? Like, how do we maximize our time? When I was working in corporate, I, for whatever reason, seemed to always live a fair distance away from where I was working. So I always had a long commute on the way to work, on the way home. And I learned to use that time very effectively. I used to complain in the beginning about commuting. And I know I've heard a lot of people complain. I'm going to challenge you today to look at your commute a little differently. If you have to be in the car for, say, an hour, maybe 2 a day, what a great chance to listen to something that's going to feed you or educate you. I knew somebody who said they got an MBA in their car over an 8-month period of time. And I mean, I'm talking about not an actual MBA, but they learned enough to probably get one. Wow, that's incredible. That is time well spent. When I get ready in the morning, when I'm up and I've worked out and I'm getting myself together, I listen to a message that's inspiring for me as I'm getting ready. I even don't waste that time in the morning. I'm always listening to something or reading something or doing something that's going to help my growth, because I believe for myself, I'm in a place of acceleration in my business. I don't want to waste a minute because I have so much to accomplish. One other thought on this is to designate a space in your home, a space that inspires you. If it's your office, make sure it's clean, it's decluttered. Make sure things are put away and you're not walking into an office that's a mess and is unorganized. I think you need to find things that will inspire you and environments that will inspire you in your alone time, because then you're going to want to return. You're going to want to go back to that. If you associate alone time with chaos all around you, you're not going to want to engage in that. And get a journal. Write down your thoughts. Take a pen to paper. There's something about writing down things pen to paper. If you want to start there, maybe you're thinking, oh my goodness, alone time. I've never thought about doing this. Start there. Start simple. Just get a pen and paper, carve out 20 minutes and see what happens. The other day, just on a personal note, I got one word in my alone time that changed the direction of something that I'm working on right now in my business. One word. And it just kind of was an aha moment, and it went off in my heart. And I thought, oh my goodness. All right. So that one word is changing something I was working on. It tweaked it in a really good direction. That's a huge win. And that came in a moment because I had carved out some alone time where I could hear. And that's happened to me a few times now. When I was so frustrated with my business, I didn't really know which direction to go. I heard vision. I heard one word again. Maybe that's something for me personally. I just hear one word at a time. That's okay, because it's helping me move forward. It's giving me such clarity. And what a word that's been. I've been speaking about vision ever since. So embrace this alone time. I want to encourage you today. This could be the key to leveling up or just getting massive clarity on some area of your life or your business that you've been struggling in. It sounds so simple, but it's so profound. So that's my challenge to you this week. I feel like sometimes we're looking for change in the complexities of life, and sometimes it's in the pure simplicity of a message like this that can literally change the course of your future. So I'll leave you with that encouragement. Thank you so much for tuning in. We'll see you next time.